What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Check the Kick podcast, Sherdog.com. It's a pretty cool website. You should check it out sometime. Appreciate all of you guys for coming back for another listen. I don't know how many episodes in we are. We're going to say quite a few. Pretty crazy week of fights. I had a really busy week with work. I got to do some fishing, which is nice, but cold. I live in the state of Washington, pretty close to the Canadian border. So you could say it gets cold here. UFC Austin, BKFC, a little bit of boxing, a lot of really cool ass weekend. A lot of cool shit happened this weekend. We're just going to go ahead and start UFC Austin. I mean, if you guys didn't catch the whole card, like some of the best prelims in a long time, even though the first fight of the card went to split decision, Hardy came back. She looked great. Ton of crazy finishes. We'll talk about that. But main event, Arman Tsarukyan knocks out Beneil Dariush, I believe, at the 62-second mark. Not very far in. Kind of back and forth in the stand-up a little bit. Beneil was kind of shelling up and backing up straight, as he always does, and Arman kind of threw a looping right around the guard that kind of seemed to buzz Dariush a bit, and then he threw a knee up the middle that looks like may have landed or didn't land, maybe off the shoulder in the neck area, but not a very impactful blow. But right after that, Arman uncorks this right hand that was extremely fast, extremely accurate. He's on one leg, by the way. He does not have 2 feet planted. That goes to show you how much power he can generate. Could also be a reflection of Beneil Dariush's current status and where he is durability-wise. Either way, my guy, Arman Tsarukyan, my lightweight pick for the Sherdog MMA fantasy matchups for the year of 2023 into 2024. Arman's my guy. So, Ben, if you're listening to this, Jay, if you're listening to this, Keith, if you're listening to this, I think I'm winning. If that's the case, catch up. I get a whole bunch of points for that first round knockout. I did pick this fight correctly. I did feel like Arman could probably grapple with Beneil, but I felt like he was much more of a nip-tuck striker, and he's much faster than Beneil was, and that seemed to be the case. You know, it's really hard. No one doesn't like Beneil Dariush. There's not. I don't know an MMA fan that doesn't like Beneil Dariush. And if you don't like Beneil Dariush, you like him for a reason that's probably not good. Because he's a nice guy. He never, is never in the Tony Ferguson matchups. I remember when he was booked against Tony, and Tony was doing his typical bad guy thing, his El Kukui thing, and Beneil's like, why are you so angry, man? So it's tough to watch a guy that whenever he speaks, he's, always speaks about God and all those things. It's just tough to watch a guy like that kind of get smoked the way he did. And there's really no way to describe it. This fight was very short. It's like a GIF is all it was. That's how short this was. This could fit on an Instagram reel. Beneil just kind of got flatlined, got hit with a couple follow-up punches, and I don't know. He looked really bad. There was a meme going around when he fought Charles Oliveira, how bad he looked on the scale. Didn't look terrible on the scale this time around, but man, anything that he gets hit with, like, he's a guy that's just so notorious for getting buzzed by everyone in the first round of a fight. But, you can... And we'll get to this. We might as well just get to it now. Next fights for someone like Arman Tsarukyan. Beneil was on an 8-fight win streak until he fought Charles Oliveira, and did well against Oliveira until he wasn't doing well anymore. But, and I mean, anyone in the top 15 is going to have moments against Charles Oliveira. That's just his style. But Beneil had no moments in this fight. This was just a straight up, like, kind of not much going on, some back and forth exchanges, and then one exchange that's blistering fast and super dynamic, and Beneil's unconscious on the canvas. So as far as Charles Oliveira, you look at both of those fights and you say, well, Beneil had a fight with both of these guys, and Beneil got finished by both of these guys, both of them in very violent fashion, but Arman did it quicker and a lot cleaner. He did not get out grappled, didn't get taken down, didn't really absorb anything. Charles Oliveira got taken down and controlled a little bit in that fight with Beneil Dariush. Arman went out there and smoked him. These guys, Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan, both have matchups against two of the same guys in this division. One of them is the current champion, Islam Makhachev, and the other one is Beneil Dariush. They both finished Beneil Dariush, in my opinion, and I'm sure if you're listening to this, it's pretty obvious that Arman did it even better than Charles Oliveira did. And then they both have a fight with Islam Makhachev, and Islam finished one of those dudes in under 2 rounds and kind of just easily outclassed him. Yeah, Charles Oliveira got up a couple times from bottom from Islam. Either way, I mean, very clean win by Islam. And then Islam has a fight with Arman that Arman took when he was 22 years old on short notice, and they went tit for tat in the grappling exchanges. Arman survived all the grappling exchanges, and both of these dudes have gotten so much better. That's the fight to make for Arman Tsarukyan next. I do believe, let Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje fight each other. They can put the BMF thing out there. Charles Oliveira is someone that could earn a BMF fight, and then the winner can, fight the winner of Arman and Islam maybe. But I know Islam was matched up against Oliveira. I know Oliveira got pulled out, eyebrow injury last minute, and that's where Volk stepped in last time around. So it should be Oliveira, but I mean, and there's an argument for Justin Gaethje. There totally is, but Justin Gaethje has never fought Islam, but Justin Gaethje got finished pretty violently by Oliveira. So those are the 3 guys. And I think with this win over Dariush in this fashion, plus their previous matchup, I think Arman just makes the most sense. I think Justin Gaethje, out of those 3, in my opinion, I think Charles Oliveira probably deserves it the least. And I know that's a hot take, and I don't think a lot of people like to hear that because Charles Oliveira has a lot of fans. But I do truly believe, based off the fact of Justin Gaethje never fighting Islam Makhachev, and Charles Oliveira being finished pretty cleanly and hurt pretty easily by Islam, and then Arman has the close fight with Islam. I mean, yeah. With this win from Arman Tsarukyan, it just makes 155 so much better. It's already been great. We're going to talk about the next fight down the card, which ended in a very gruesome and unfortunate fashion. Lightweights on the co-main and main event. The lightweight is just such a stacked division. It's so good. All these guys, I mean, anyone in the top 15, maybe outside of like Grant Dawson, but you could close your eyes, shuffle the deck, and make a fight, and it'd be amazing. I don't know what's next for Beneil Dariush at all. What sucks for someone in Beneil Dariush's position, because I believe he was ranked number 4 in the UFC rankings and Arman was 8. Arman was like a 2.5 to 1 favorite to going into this fight. Clearly that, the odds made sense. Yeah, you pick a pretty big favorite, but yeah, this fight showed a lot. Beneil Dariush is having a tough time, I think, cutting to 155. He's 34, so he's not extremely old, but my God, he looks older than that with the gray hair, and he just seems to be – he's always been a guy that's pretty easily hurt, but he's not a guy with the best defense. He's not the fastest guy, and he seems to, in his last 2 fights, yes, he fought Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan, who are clearly in the top 5 best lightweights of the world. Shit like that's going to happen. But now he's going to be stuck fighting someone like Benoit Saint Denis or Jalin Turner, who's going to want his, Beneil probably be ranked number 8 or between 8 and 10, maybe 7 and 10 after this one, in my opinion. Someone like Benoit Saint Denis that's streaking, someone like Turner that's coming off of an absolutely violent win. Those are the kind of dudes that Beneil's going to be stuck fighting next, or he's going to have to go pretty far back, even further than that, and fight like a Matt Favola, who's still pretty freaking dangerous, or maybe you have to rematch Drew Dober, and all those guys hit so hard and are so dynamic. Like, I'd hate to see him have to fight Benoit Saint Denis or Jalin Turner. Like, that would just be terrible for him. He needs some time off. I would be surprised if he takes another fight at 55. Maybe he just, at this stage of the game, he still has a big enough name and he's still a fun enough fighter to where he could kind of, have those outside of the top 15 fights at welterweight. Maybe stay away from dudes like Michael Morales, but fight a dude like Matthew Semmelsberger, and just move up a weight class and not have to cut that extra 15 pounds and fight 3 or 4 more times and then retire. Maybe see, go pick a fight with like RDA at 170, shit. Tough going for Beneil Dariush. In this sport, whenever there's a winner, there's also a loser. And whenever there's an emphatic winner, there's always an emphatic loser. So that just kind of sucks to see as a fan. And obviously I'm invested in Arman Tsarukyan. He is my pick for the Sherdog MMA fantasy thing, but it still sucks to see guys like Beneil Dariush lose. Moving on to just more violence. This whole card was pure violence. We have Bobby Green getting viciously stopped by Jalin Turner. This was a really, really dirty, gross stoppage from Kerry Hatley. And it's very interesting. Ben Duffy from Sherdog, he is a Houston, Texas native, so he is very familiar with the Texas Athletic Commission and how they do MMA down there in that part of the country. And it's funny that there's always something bad going on in Texas. And this was actually not even the worst stoppage this year. Edgar Chairez had a crazy stoppage earlier in Texas this year in a lower B League regional MMA promotion. But yeah, Kerry Hatley is not even a Texas native. And look at the tomfoolery he is pulling down in Texas. Bobby Green was trying to play an outside striking game with the tallest and longest lightweight probably in UFC history, a dude that has very straight whipping power, a tall man power. Jalin Turner is not a guy that's extremely built at all, but this is what I feared for Bobby. Bobby had a lot of success timing Turner when Turner would try to step in and land shots, but he is playing a game. Bobby's game is fit for his body type, but if you stick him against the upgraded version of a tall, athletic fighter, Bobby's a guy that's always going to want to try to use his range and his reach and try to stay and his vision and try to stay at the end of punches. But Jalin Turner can touch you from so far away that you cannot just play this bob and weave game. Turner got caught. Turner caught Green. Green goes face down. Green gets hit with like 12 seconds worth of unnecessary damage. And it looks like he's still trying to move, I guess you could say. But it's like Kerry Hatley, Bobby Green is still moving because he's having a seizure. It was terrible. This is how you get to that like Maxim Dadashev territory. If you don't know who that is, he's a boxer that passed away, I think in 2019. He got hit and kind of towards the back of the head or hit really hard, whatever happened to him. He took a lot of damage and then he ended up passing away after via a brain bleed, I believe. Like if someone's going to die in MMA, this is what it looks like. Especially, 155, these shots from Turner would have, he could have been punching the heavyweight champion. If Tom Aspinall's laying face down like that and Jalin Turner's on his back cracking him with those shots, it like the extremely concussive blows. And yes, these guys are 155ers. Jalin hits really hard, but imagine if this was a heavyweight, like Derek Lewis doing that to somebody. That could literally kill someone. Immediate like brain bleed stuff. Bobby was like not even at the hospital. I'm like, what the? He was like posting on his social media that night. He seems fine, which is great. I hope he got checked out. Obviously, the UFC is not going to let him, be moving around like that. He's going to eventually have to go in. Let me fix my light here a little bit. He's going to eventually have to go in, to the hospital. He can't take those many concussive blows and not go get a CT scan. Pretty tough to watch. This is probably the best moment. This is probably the highest Bobby Green's going to really ever get in his career. Like, Bobby Green right now is ranked 13th, and this is the UFC's rankings. He's ranked 13th. Go to the Sherdog rankings. They're better than the UFC's, but I'm going by the UFC's rankings just for actual matchmaking purposes. This does not include all organizations. Like, a guy that knocked out Bobby Green and Drew Dober is ranked number 15 in the division. Renato Moicano is ranked number 14. Bobby Green is 13. Jalin Turner is 12. Benoit Saint-Denis is 11. RDA 10, Dan Hooker number 9, and so on and so forth. But I'm just, for Bobby Green, these are all super tough fights for him. I think Bobby Green could probably win a fight against someone like Renato Moicano. I think he could probably beat Drew Dober again. Beat Drew Dober if he were to fight him again. But I don't like, and maybe Bobby Green could do well against someone like Dan Hooker, but I don't like Bobby Green in any of those fights above him. Maybe Beneil Dariush. That's probably a fight that would make a lot of sense. Him and Dariush, now that I'm just putting that together. But Bobby Green's going to need some time off. I hope he doesn't lose his spot in the ranking, but he very well might, and he might lose his next fight after this. He's been in the game forever. Bobby Green is an OG. The Dan Hooker fight, in my opinion, was a much, not easier fight, but I don't think Dan Hooker is as one-shot dangerous as Turner is, and clearly prove this. Turner is coming off of a very close fight with Dan Hooker and an even closer fight that he probably should have won against Gamrot. I would like to see Jalin Turner fight somebody like Benoit Saint-Denis, or, I mean, Jalin Turner did have 2 losses before this, but you can't really. It's a Matthias Gamrot fight. Their Gamrot wins. Kind of how like Gamrot beat Arman Tsarukyan. Gamrot has a win over Jalin Turner. I don't see why they couldn't just have Jalin Turner fight someone like Rafael Fiziev on Fiziev's return. I think that'd be super fun. RDA is ranked number 10, but RDA would not. I mean, RDA will fight anybody, but at this point, RDA is probably looking to fight someone at 170. So yeah, give me Jalin Turner and Benoit Saint-Denis moving forward. Give me Bobby Green and Dariush as an old man in the rankings fight. Think that makes sense. Or give me Jalin Turner versus Rafael Fiziev once Fiziev returns. One more fight, and then we'll kind of talk about the rest of the weekend. Moving on to the final fight we're going to talk about, and I'm going to kind of touch on a lot of the stuff from this whole card. This card was just very awesome. Probably the best, fixing my hat there. Probably the best free fight night of the year. Probably the best free card that I can remember in a while. We've had some really good cards. Deiveson Figueiredo defeats Rob Font, unanimous decision all around, 30-27. Very clean victory for Deiveson Figueiredo, but Rob Font had his moments. Really quick, like, how many times has Rob Font done the chicken dance in his MMA career? This is a guy that just seems to get hurt all the time. Yes, he does get hurt by the biggest punchers. He never goes out. But God, like, even in this fight, Figueiredo had him doing the stanky leg. Figueiredo had him doing the stanky leg multiple times. Rob Font's jab was pretty effective. And I think, first off, I hate to say this, but I've never been able to get Rob Font right. For the longest time, I thought he was just another guy, and him and Calvin Kattar both paired together, I thought were dudes that are kind of overhyped, that are dudes that take pretty vicious beatings. And then I started to change my mind on both of them. I'm still on the fence about Calvin Kattar, and I was on the fence about Rob Font, and then I watched him knock out Adrian Yanez, and I was like, oh, Adrian's really good. And then Adrian Yanez took another bad loss after that against Jonathan Martinez. So I am just like, man, maybe I've been right all along about Rob Font. Maybe he is just another guy that does have some pretty good skills and matched up appropriately, he's going to win fights. But whenever he's matched up against the best of the best, it's going to look like this. And I think that's probably right, especially at this age. I believe he's 36 years old at this point. And Figueiredo just was able to hurt him over and over again. One of Rob Font's best skills, I do think that's kind of underrated, is his clinch and his hockey fight. Like, he'll get an overhook and throw some really good uppercuts. He'll come over the top and then throw a couple good uppercuts. His dirty boxing is probably his second best skill, but he can be easily out wrestled. Deiveson Figueiredo, even though he was smaller than Rob Font, and he's going to be an average to small dude at this division, he is still a complete powerhouse. I think after this win, Deiveson Figueiredo might have another 2-3 fights in him where he actually is able to look really good. I think his 4 fights with Brandon Moreno, by the 4th fight, I think that really started to mess with his confidence. He did not look great taking shots from Moreno in their 4th fight, but looked fine taking shots from a probably harder puncher. He looked completely fine. He wasn't rattled, wasn't buzzed at all from Rob Font, and did take some clean shots from Font, was able to easily get single legs and get fast takedowns. Figueiredo's wrestling game, and I said this in the Sherdog live chat, I think Figueiredo's wrestling game in this division is going to be like a Gamrot type, where he could take Rob Font down whenever the hell he wanted, whenever he wanted. That single leg, that blast double, he'd cut the angle and get him taken down middle of the cage and along the cage. Didn't matter. Anytime Figueiredo wanted to take Rob Font down in this fight, he could. And if he didn't try a situation, he probably could have got it there if he wanted to. But he couldn't hold him down at all, could not control him. Rob Font did look okay getting back up to the feet, but just kept getting out punched and out boxed. He would hang in the fight with Figueiredo. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm sure the striking numbers are probably pretty close. But anytime Figueiredo touched him or landed something clean on him, he would hurt him in multiple times over multiple rounds. And this should put Deiveson Figueiredo into the rankings. It's definitely going to put him into the Sherdog rankings. But this should put him into the UFC rankings. Rob Font, he's ranked number 8, so you're probably going to assume that he gets shot right up all the way up there. This is probably like the second best or even the best division in the UFC. Like, all these guys are great. We're going to talk about Chris Gutierrez and Song Yadong here very shortly, but yeah, the guys around Rob Font and the guys that are behind him he's kind of almost fought everybody, but there's still some fights for him in this division. Figueiredo, I would love to see him fight. He's going to be probably ranked number 8 just because the ranked number 7 Song Yadong is fighting this weekend. Him and Petrion were supposed to fight many moons ago. I'd love to see Deiveson Figueiredo fight Petrion. I would love to see him fight Corey Sandhagen. There's no reason to make him fight anyone behind him in the rankings. He's an ex-champion. Everybody knows who this guy is. That, you know, with his 4 fights, his all-time great rivalry, probably the best rivalry in MMA history. Let's be honest, not as much bullshit with talking, but just great fucking fights. Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, chef kiss, like, we were, you know, some of us might have been complaining about it. I might have even complained about it when we were getting them back to back to back. But if you look at them, they're all amazing fights. Figueiredo, at his age, I believe he's 35. He looked great here. He's an athletic specimen. This dude may be, you know, the Yoel Romero of the lower weight classes, a dude that can kind of hang around for a while, but he shouldn't fight back. Marlon Vera, Cheeto is fighting Sean O'Malley for the title. If he loses, I could see that fight totally happening. That fight would make tons of sense, and that fight would be awesome because they're super similar in so many ways with their striking and how venomous they are. He was also supposed to fight Dominic Cruz. I don't think Dominic Cruz would fight this dude. I really don't think Dominic Cruz is coming back around to fight Deiveson Figueiredo, but maybe. Man, but just shoot Deiveson up there against anyone. Shit, put him against Merab. Fuck it. Let him fight anyone in the top 5 anyone above him. He could fight the winner of Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez. That's going to happen later on this week. I like him fighting anyone up there. I know people are saying match him with Henry. Henry is like one of his head coaches. He's never going to fight Henry Cejudo. They're both training partners. Henry has been a big mentor for this guy. That fight ain't going to happen. Great win from Figueiredo. He looked great here. His power went up with him. He was durable. I think halfway through the fight, once he realized, wow, I'm faster than this dude, I'm stronger than this dude, I can take this dude down whenever I want, and he's ranked number 8 in the world, and only really good guys beat this guy, man, I think I got a place here. I think his confidence came back. I would love to see him moving forward. I hope he's even more confident, because Figueiredo fighting with confidence, ask Joseph Benavidez how that went. Yeah, when Figueiredo is firing on all cylinders and he's not being drained by a weight cut and he's confident, the dude could be a freaking problem, and he's fun. Moving on, really just to the rest of the card. I'm not going to do a middle segment of the show this week, guys. We're going to, start with the old. We're going to go ahead and just pass the middle segment. We're going to skip right to in with the new after this, because there's still a lot to talk about from this card. This card was full of insane finishes. Sean Brady submitting Kelvin Gastelum in round 3. He's probably still wrestling Gastelum. The way that Kelvin Gastelum, I picked him in this fight. I was wrong. I picked Rob Font to beat Figueiredo, and I was wrong about that. Dead wrong about both of these fights. Sean Brady looked great, but Kelvin Gastelum looked terrible. You can go poke through his record. And I think this is a guy that his fight with Chris Curtis, he beat Tim Kennedy, who was on the way out. He beat Michael Bisping on week's notice after getting club and sub. I don't know. I think I'm done with Kelvin Gastelum. I think I'm done picking him in fights. I think I'm done being a believer in him. The way he talked, the way he made weight so easily this week, he seemed so confident, and he just shit the bed. Sean Brady is great. Sean Brady is a great fighter. Bilal Muhammad was tweeting out saying, I thought you guys said Sean Brady stunk or something like that, but maybe Kelvin Gastelum just stinks too, Bilal. He did not look good. He got 50 grand. Everyone that finished the fight this weekend got 50 G's. Joaquim Silva, decision over Clay Guida. Clay Guida, 41 years old, still out there playing Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Dustin Soulfoots came back and made Punahele kind of just quit. Misha Tate got a third round submission over Julia Avila. Avila quit via literally just having her will broken. Misha Tate should have finished this fight way earlier. Great win for Misha. Probably puts her into a title fight at women's bantamweight. Cody Brundage and Drakkar Klose. Cody Brundage gets a slam knockout. Zachary Reese is trying to go from a triangle from bottom. Cody Brundage told Drakkar Klose, hold my beer, homie. I got you. Watch this. Picks him up, slams him on his head, knocks him out, hits him with 2 more follow-up punches. That's done. Oh, guess what happened on the fight before this? Drakkar Klose does the same thing to Joe Selecki. Joe Selecki takes Drakkar Klose down. Drakkar Klose hits a sweep, gets on top. Joe Selecki tries to sink in an armbar. Drakkar Klose picked him up, turned him sideways, dropped him on his temple. He was also dead. Back-to-back slam knockouts. I made a joke to my fiance about 2 months ago. Hey, you want to go to Austin, Texas and watch a UFC fight? And we both kind of laughed it off. And if I would have been serious about it, we would have probably been there for this. This whole card was awesome. Bellator versus Potiera. Potiera was on his way to winning the cleanest 10-8 round that you could easily score. Bellator comes back, turns the tides, gets back up to his feet somehow, some way. Potiera is gas. He gets to finish. Fight of the night. Comeback of the year. That fight was freaking incredible. Jared Gordon also not comeback of the year, but major comeback, getting shit kicked by Wellington Turman. Wellington Turman was like, hey, if I come out here looking like Alex Pereira, I can probably fight like him. Wrong. knocked out in the second round by Jared Gooden. Jared Gooden was fighting with one eye. His eye was swollen. He took quite the beating from a good old Wellington Turman. That card was awesome. Mike Perry defeats Eddie Alvarez via corner stoppage in round 2. Eddie Alvarez tweeted today saying he broke 2 of his orbital bone, and something up there in his eye. 2 bones around the eye broken. Corner stops it. Both of these guys, Mike Perry, his face after he made a video with sunglasses on, he looked like he got stung by a horde of bees. Eddie Alvarez looks like he was in a bare knuckle fight. Both these guys look terrible. This is made bare knuckle. Mike Perry has wins over Luke Rockhold, over Eddie Alvarez, over Michael Venom Page, all in bare knuckle. Mike Perry is built for this. This is awesome. Let's give him the bag. He's calling out all types of people. Called out Jorge Masvidal. That shit ain't gonna happen, but it's awesome. Mike Perry is right where he should be. The UFC fucked up with Mike Perry. This is where he should be. He's calling out Darren Till. All the great things. Ryan Garcia also won a fight against an opponent he was supposed to win a fight against. Won via stoppage later on in the fight. I didn't even watch it. I should watch it, but I didn't have time. And I went fishing yesterday instead of watching boxing. Gotta do what makes you happy sometimes. And watching Ryan Garcia is not something that gets me extremely excited on December 4th of 2023. We're going to move on to the next, I think it's supposed to be UFC China or UFC Shanghai that is now in Vegas. Be right back, and we'll go ahead and get on to the rest of the fights. Moving on to fight card coming up this weekend. Main event is Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez. We're going to start with a middleweight bout. I'm going to pick 3 fights. First fight I want to talk to you guys about, Jung-Yong Park versus Andre Muniz. We have Jung-Yong Park coming in as about minus 200 favorite. Minus 192 is the best price you can get him. Worst one is minus 225. Best price for Andre Muniz, I see him at plus 175. And then I see him all the way up to plus 160. Interesting. Just interesting in general, the odds here, in my opinion, because I'm a little bit surprised to see Jung-Yong Park be this big of a favorite, but at the same time, Muniz is coming off of a couple losses that are just not that good. The way he got finished by Paul Craig and the way Paul Craig looked against Brendan Allen, and then he got finished by Brendan Allen as well prior to that. He was on a little bit of a run, and he was a guy that a lot of us were saying, man, he had 2 wins on the Contender Series, and then he had the win against Antonio Arroyo, who was just not fit for the UFC. Bartosz Fabinski won via armbar, but what really put him on the map was breaking Jacare Souza's arm. And Jacare was probably, was definitely very old, and that was probably really it for him. And then he had the win against Eric Anders, another armbar. So the dude had 3 armbars in a row, and then he, kind of dominated but couldn't finish Uriah Hall. And we were all thinking, man, this could be the guy to defeat someone like Israel Adesanya. Turns out he's now on a 2-fight losing streak where he's been finished in both of those. And it's like the stereotypical big Brazilian dude, been on the roster for a little bit, maybe getting a little bit more piss test from USADA. Not sure. Jung-Yong Park, on the other hand, is on a hell of a run. He's a dude that is... Jung-Yong Park's an overachiever. He really is. He lost to Fluffy Hernandez back in 2019. Went on and beat Marc-Andre Barriol. That was a great fight. Beat someone, John Phillips, probably not fit for the UFC. Beat Tafon Nchukwi. That crazy brawl with Hobocop where he lost. Then he went out there and beat Eric Anders, beat Joseph Holmes, beat Dennis Tululin, and then went out there and finished Albert Duraev. Yes, those guys are not on the same level as probably Brendan Allen, but I'm pretty sure in 2023, oh my gosh, Paul Craig is on the same level as maybe Eric Anders and Albert Duraev. This fight is so... A year ago, Muniz would be like a minus 400 favorite. But now I'm kind of thinking, man, is this guy a front runner? What Jung Young Park does best is what seems to absolutely melt Andre Muniz, and that's what worries me. Jung Young Park can grapple. He has amazing cardio. He's a great combination puncher. He is a building striker. He can throw straight punches. In his last fight against Dariush, he took a little bit of a licking. And Albert Dariush is a very, not a big guy, but he's a very pressuring topside grappler, something that Andre Muniz can do. And I think Albert Dariush, maybe he's a guy that has shown to be broken and finished before, but man, I think Andre Muniz may be broken at this point. He's going to be huge, and maybe a jump up to 205 is where he should probably be. He's a giant guy. He could probably go beat up dudes like Iwan Kuchalaba and Alonzo Menafield and dudes like that. Not beat up, but go submit those types of dudes. But I don't think Andre Muniz can have the Uriah Hall fight with Jung Young Park. Because if Jung Young Park gets 2 or 3 moments in this fight and starts to roll downhill on Muniz, it's over for him. I could see Muniz winning the first round, or maybe buzzing Jung Young Park and putting him in a compromised position, or maybe even the first round ending with Muniz on Jung Young Park's back. But the way that Jung Young Park just gets rolling with his striking, he's such a good grappler. He's a good scrambler. He's definitely probably a better scrambler grappler than Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall was able to stay safe and not be finished in his fight with Muniz. I'm going to go with Jung Young Park to get a late, probably, I'm going to say a 3rd round stoppage. I think Muniz gets tired, may get clipped up on the feet, do something desperate and get finished on the ground, or maybe even just get TKO'd standing. Give me Jung Young Park to win in the 3rd round via finish. Not an underdog, but I think a sneaky valuable betting line. Moving on to the next fight. Well, not the next fight on the card, but my next fight. We have Anthony Smith stepping in on short notice, fighting Khalil Rountree. Anthony Smith, guy that's definitely long in the tooth. Give you the odds really quick on this. Anthony Smith is a plus 195 underdog. Khalil Rountree comes back at minus 238. I think that makes sense too. Anthony Smith taking this fight on short notice. And yes, he did win against Ryan Spann, who is a big, powerful striker. But prior to that, he did not look good against Johnny Walker, was injured against Magomed Ankalaev. This dude also is something that does not get talked about a lot. If you ever listen to his podcast with Bisping, Anthony Smith is a guy that's always injured, always nursing an injury. He's a dude that's been fighting. I mean, he's got 37 wins and 18 losses. Guy's got over 50 pro fights. He's not very old. He's only 35. And this dude has just fought everyone. And he's all, his loss to John Jones, his loss to Glover, probably his worst loss where he took the worst beating. This guy is just so tough. His nickname literally fits him. And then you got a guy in Khalil Rountree who his nickname, the Warhorse, also fits him. This dude is when he loses fights, he gets viciously finished by Johnny Walker, viciously ground and pounded by Iwan Kuchalaba, or loses a split decision against Marcin Prachnio. When he loses a fight, he loses a fight. But when he wins a fight, outside of his win against Dustin Jacoby, which I think actually Jacoby won, who happens to be a training partner of Anthony Smith, when he wins a fight, typically it looks like his win against Chris Daukaus, or it looks like his win against the thief Carl Roberson, or they look like wins against Modestas Bukauskas, or his beating of Eric Anders, or his impressive knockout win over Gokhan Saki, who was a highly touted kickboxer at the time. This dude, Khalil Rountree, is a venomous striker. What worries me about Anthony Smith in this fight is his inability to deal with leg kicks. He's been chewed up by leg kicks in multiple fights. Magomed Ankalaev crushed him with the leg kicks, and really anyone that's fought Smith has been able to crush him with leg kicks. Johnny Walker did the same thing. He doesn't really check them. He kind of walks through them, but Anthony Smith is a decent striker. He's good in the clinch. He's got decent power. I'm worried about his durability, but, and I'll say it again, but his wrestling is good. His BJJ is good. His ground game is good. He can scramble well. When he gets people on the ground, he finishes them. Look what he did to someone like Devin Clark. That was super impressive. The way he rear naked choked Ryan Spann in their first fight. If this fight was happening in 2021, the way that, you know, when Smith is on that little three-fight run, coming back after losing to Rakic, when he, you know, submitted Devin Clark and had that doctor stoppage with the leg kicks against Jimmy Crute, and then kind of club and sub Ryan Spann. In 2021, I'd probably be all over Anthony Smith in this fight. But if there's one bad scramble, Anthony Smith is going to be a lot slower than Khalil Rountree. And if there's one bad scramble where Smith's on the ground and Khalil Rountree's up to his feet and Khalil just like starts crushing Anthony Smith's body with those vicious soccer kicks, if you're on the ground in front of Khalil Rountree, he's going to kick you to pieces. But his deficiencies in the grappling, I don't know if they're still there or not. Daukaus kind of tried to grapple, but Daukaus was on like a 4-fight losing streak where he lost all those fights via knockout. The guys that have wanted to wrestle Khalil Rountree, especially early in his career, I mean, the dude lost to Andrew Sanchez and lost to Tyson Pedro. Someone as good as him should not. If you booked him against Tyson Pedro today, he would eliminate Tyson Pedro. But the standing knockouts, he can be hurt. Anthony Smith is pretty good in the clinch. Johnny Walker hurt him in the clinch. I think Iwan Kutilaba took this guy down and elbowed his head off. I do think that there's routes for both of these guys to win. I just don't like Anthony Smith. I don't like the way he looked against Johnny Walker. He was having to talk to himself and talk himself into this fight. He's got a bunch of kids. He has a bunch of expensive hobbies that he talks about all the time. He seems to live even though he lives in Nebraska, he seems to kind of live a lifestyle where he may be spending some money. So, I'm curious why he's taking this fight, especially on such short notice, but he is Anthony Smith. Not talking because I'm stuck on my pick. I'm really flip-flopping here. Anthony Smith's so tough. Could Khalil break something like he did to Modestas Blakauskas and take Anthony Smith out of this fight? Absolutely. Not only is Khalil just a venomous striker with a striking style that's meant to absolutely kill and hurt people, but you parlay that with Anthony Smith's injuries. But it is MMA, and I don't know the percentage, but I'd like to think that wrestlers beat strikers a lot. Happens all the time. That's why a lot of you guys hate the wrestlers. Give me Anthony Smith as the underdog, and I'm going to be wrong. Anyone picking Rountree, that's the right pick. But I just, I don't know. Anthony Smith can grapple. He's a black belt. He has good wrestling. Not good wrestling, decent wrestling, good grappling, good submissions. And as much as a fish out of water Anthony Smith might end up being with Rountree on the feet, I think on the ground, Rountree, even in 2023, is going to be much more out of sorts against someone like Anthony Smith. There's going to be a gap in their striking, but I think that the gap in their grappling is going to be it's just going to be a canyon. Anthony Smith's a smart guy. He's not an idiot. There's no way he doesn't come out and try to get some grappling going. Give me Anthony Smith. Give me Anthony Smith by submission in the second round after taking a hellacious beating in the first. All right, guys, moving on to the main event. And this is a decent card. It's going to start at 4 p.m. Pacific time. That's when the prelims are going to start. So you can go and kind of run all your errands for the day. If you're on the West Coast, do everything you want to do. If you're on the East Coast, you can go and have a full day, go ride your bikes, or it's cold. Don't ride your bike. Go fishing. Go do something. Go run some errands. Go take your kids to Chuck E. Cheese, and you can make it back for the fights. We got Song Yadong here versus Chris Gutierrez. Song Yadong, minus 380 favorite. He's a huge favorite here. You can get him. Best you can find him in front of me is minus 350. And the best price I see Chris Gutierrez is plus 300. And this fight got kind of made on semi-short notice. This was supposed to be Petroyan, and Petroyan pulled out probably like 3-4 weeks ago. I don't remember, but he pulled out. Chris Gutierrez is a guy that I just feel like I still don't know enough about, even though he's a guy that has been in the UFC for quite a while. And maybe it's because the way he lost, hopped into the UFC, got rear naked choked by Raoni Barcelos, but that was in 2018, and Raoni Barcelos was and still is a great fighter. Draw with Cody Durden is a little bit interesting for me, but he's beaten, Andre Ewell, who's no longer in the UFC, Filippo Colares, who is unfortunately deceased. He got hit by a car in Brazil. So rest in peace him. But he has wins over him. Danaa Batgari seemed like a good win a while ago, but went on a bad losing streak. He has that knockout against Frankie Edgar. Lost in a weird way to Pedro Muniz, but I think he had some trouble at home with his head coach and the cancer thing. And then he had that really impressive win against Haile Alatang. This is a guy that Chris Gutierrez has a great kicking game. He likes to stay outside. He'll stay outside, land kicks, kind of bait you in, try to get you to circle into shots. That's kind of how he knocked out Frankie Edgar, but everyone needs Frankie Edgar. His win against Haile Alatang, he looked great there. Was able to stay on the outside, able to kind of pot shot, land his good, strong kicks. But someone like Song Yadong is just... I don't think anybody should be a 3-1 underdog with a kicking game, a calf kicking game like Chris Gutierrez. And I know this is one of his main training partners, but Jonathan Martinez, who I think is an even better kicker than Chris Gutierrez, like Jonathan Martinez shouldn't be a 3-1 underdog to anyone just because his leg kicks, and you take 3 or 4 kicks from that guy, you're dead. But Song Yadong, man, he looked so great against Ricky Simon. It sucks that he, took this much time off, but he did have a bunch of fights matched up, and he's still super young. He fights at a great camp. He's been over in California with Uriah Faber for many moons, and Chris Gutierrez also fights out of an amazing camp. Team Alpha Male for Song Yadong. And Factory X for Chris Gutierrez. Song Yadong has definitely fought the better opponents. I think probably the best opponents that Chris Gutierrez fought, he lost against in Raoni Barcelos and then, and Pedro Muniz. But Song Yadong has had a semi-close fight with Corey Sandhagen. A lot of people like to think that fight was super one-sided, but Song Yadong definitely had moments in that fight, and he was coming on once got cut really bad, and that cut continued to just get open. He's super tough, super durable, got big power. Ask Marlon Moraes, even though everyone knocks out Marlon Moraes. That knockout where he head kicked Julio Arce, that was super impressive. Wins against Casey Kenny. His loss against Kyler Phillips was very close, but his win, he was on a streak there between Cody Stamen, which was a draw back in 2019. He was like I think he was probably 19 or 20 at the time, youngest kid on the roster. Had a fight up a division with Marlon Vera on short notice where he won, but I think Marlon Vera won that fight. And then Kyler Phillips, where he lost, which is a super close fight. And then he had another close fight with Casey Kenny. But since then, since he knocked out Julio Arce with that head kick, he's definitely turned a corner, and he looked so good against Ricky Simon. I picked Ricky Simon. I thought he'd be able to out-wrestle and out-grapple Song Yadong. I was wrong. Song Yadong's takedown defense looked great. His pocket punching, his willingness to get into the pocket, be calculated under pressure, and that, the kid's 26 years old. but he's got almost 30 pro fights. He's got more pro fights and more main event. And this is like his third or fourth main event, more main event, more 5-round fights than Chris Gutierrez. I just don't think this, again, Chris Gutierrez coming way up in the rankings to fight Song Yadong as well. I think he may be ranked 14th or 13th, and he's bumping way up to, number 6 or 7 to fight Song Yadong here. I just, I think this fight got made because Chris Gutierrez had a decent win against Haile Yadong. I think that there was so many fights that kept falling apart for Song Yadong since his last win. I think this is probably the only guy that was willing to take this type of fight on short notice or semi-short notice against someone as risky and as dangerous as Song Yadong. I think every time Chris Gutierrez has stepped up or fought the next level of competition, he's lost, even though he did not look good against Pedro Munoz. That was in 2023, and it's Pedro Munoz. And he lost to Hani Barcelos. Yes, that was a couple years ago, but that was in his UFC debut. Song Yadong is better than both of them. He's much more of a dangerous fighter all around. He can scramble really well. He's tough as shit. He's just as tough as Pedro Munoz. He doesn't get knocked out. He loses via doctor stoppage. He loses via decision. But this dude hasn't, like, his last loss to Corey Sandhagen was via doctor stoppage. But before that, 2021 Kyler Phillips, and that was a really close fight. Like, people just don't go out there and finish Song Yadong. And Chris Gutierrez isn't a guy to go out there and finish Song Yadong. He's just not a finishing type of guy. He's much more of a create some angles and kind of has a little bit of Leon Edwards to his game. Yes, Leon Edwards did head kick Kamaru Usman. Chris Gutierrez also need Frankie Edgar. But most of the time, they're much more of a footwork-based, kicking-based, use their reach, try to outpoint fight somebody, chop their legs up. Chris Gutierrez is a venomous leg kicker, but I just think Song Yadong is going to walk through the leg kicks, close the space. He comes from a great camp. Again, I think Team Alpha Male will be able to put a game plan in where they're going to crowd the kicker, get their hands, let his hands go. Song Yadong is going to probably look similar to the Ricky Simon fight where he just pulled far ahead with the striking. And he may have a little bit of issues with Chris Gutierrez's footwork through the first, second, maybe third round, but once Song Yadong starts touching people, he's got very fast hands, maybe the fastest in the division, big power, some of the biggest power in the division. He's so durable. He crowds the kicker. He lands his boxing combinations. Maybe doesn't finish Gutierrez, but hurts him multiple times through this fight. Give me Song Yadong to win. Give me him to win a decision where he hurts Gutierrez 2 or 3 times, probably like in the 3rd or 4th round. Give me Song Yadong here. I think he is the pick for this fight. And there's some other decent fights on this card. Suma Derji is always in a war. He's fighting Alan Nascimento, who's another Shuto box guy that's always in a war. Nasrat Hakparas is fighting Jamie Malarkey. Jamie Malarkey is another guy that's always in wars. Kenan Song is fighting Kevin Josset. Josset looked great his last time out. Melky Costa and Steve Garcia has been rebooked. That's going to be a fight to watch. Steve Garcia is always in tons of fights. Tatsuro Taira's back, but he didn't look great last time out, in my opinion. We'll see how this fight goes a little bit later in the day for this fight card. I'm kind of excited for it. Week after that, next week, we got Covington versus Leon Edwards. That's going to be a fight. That's going to be a badass fight. Whole pretty nice card. I'll be back next Tuesday for you guys. I'll be recapping this card. I'll be picking fights for the next UFC pay-per-view. Until then, enjoy the fights. Check the kick. Sherdog.com. I'm the host, Devin. Thank you for listening.